talked about quite a bit, especially in respect, and I say that in true word, in respect to Lacey Hunt and a little bit lower than that, David Rosenberg. But we've had that discussion, and now it seems to be that people think we're going back into the throes of that discussion. As I said to John, I'm not there yet. I just, the Fed's being a little coy here. But
well, you know what, Ira? Let me maybe help you with that for a second.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, I with all of this, I believe it's important to break things down into durations or time frames, right? So to say inflation, deflation, you know, there's no context behind it, right? So, all right, the dollar went down for 8 weeks in a row.
Right.
Was it due for, you know, a bounce? Yes.
Oh, yes, there's no question.
Okay.
I think we were uniform in this room. You know,
Yeah.
while
So no, but here's where I'm going, right? So while there might be deflationary forces for another quarter, you know, for maybe another quarter, maybe two, all right? So that's what, 6 months? Okay, so that's one duration. Now the next duration, which I think is what you're focusing your attention on, is maybe beyond that 6 month window. Let's call it 6 to 12 month duration, right? So when we have these conversations, I think it's important to bring that context into the conversation, just so that, because then it sounds like, you know, who's an inflationist, who's a deflationist? It's these calls, and I don't like making calls. I like working within certain time frames based on what's going on in the moment. Yield curve control, you know, if I were Powell, I wouldn't be wanting to talk about it. Why? Because it's not something they have to actually decide on yet. Will they have to decide on it? Probably. When will that be? Now, here's where I'm just making a call. Probably somewhere beyond the 6 month window. You follow what I'm trying to say with respect to time frames?
Yeah, and that's well stated, absolutely well stated. And Powell actually spoke a little bit to that when he. There were actually a couple good questions about the bond market and what the Fed was doing, and Powell pointed out, look we're buying in the secondary market. We don't buy like they're buying 800 different corporate bonds, basically building their own index. And it's not going in, so they're not taking anybody's debt direct, meaning that when it comes to offer, you know, on a primary, on an initial listing, that's not where they're buying. They just buy to be able to pump liquidity into the system by taking some of this stuff and basically putting it on the shelf until otherwise. Are they running credit risk with it? He doesn't think they are as much, but I do, you know, because you're the holder of it. Companies go bad, you're going to be sitting with it, and then what are you doing? I know the answer, but they're able to keep pumping money into the system through all ways. Now, the only reason I discussed it, and I care about the deflation argument, because if we see it start to take hold in a more rapid fashion, meaning, you know, the equity markets begin to break down, bond markets start to rally yet again, bonds start to rally, and yields on the long end start to head lower. What are we going to see from the Fed? If the Fed believes its hands are tied, we know that they're trying their damnedest to do nothing. But if push came to shove, nothing is not going to be a hand that they can play here. So that's where I think the deflation weighs out, because people are going, well, if they're not going to do anything and their hands are tied and we're not getting fiscal stimulus from Congress, we're in the throes of deflation. I mean, that's the only reason I even, you know, I think about it at all, is in that regard. Because how is it going to push then what does the Fed do?
Well, they're already in a box right here, because the point and figures have failed again in the S&Ps. And at this point, you got a chance at seeing 56.5 today, which,
everything that we've talked about, they got to talk about really today. And the fact that the Congress has blown the next stage of stimulus, because I don't think they're going to rush and get anything done here.
No.
I don't think, they're all posturing, one with schools. I had to listen to it because I didn't listen to yesterday's. I went to go play golf, but it's painful because it's just all posturing. I know it's an election year and I know we're right in the throes of it. I'm not naive. Oh man, it's a lot of posturing. How about some problem solving? And they throw it on the Fed's shoulders. So, and then they applaud he doesn't get dragged into it. But I don't know the way around it. What do you think, you're going to get the program in place after November 3rd? What would be the incentive then? Oh, you're going to finally do something that is maybe in the best interest of Main Street? I don't. It's
and with rates at zero, Ira, does that provide the consumer with any incentive to go out and buy something now versus rates are going to be basically at zero for 2 to 3 more years according to their dot plot. I can wait a while. I don't need to go rush out and buy stuff I don't really need.
Well, but the deflation argument, so now we run, because the algorithms have built the deflation into the algorithms have built into the deflation discussion, of course, the rally in the dollar, because there must be a shortage of dollars for this to take place, right? If global business slows down, that necessitates a shortage of U.S. dollars for funding the international system.
Well, that has crossed my mind.
Well, Angelo, I bring up because you've been far more a proponent of this than I have. I just don't, just not seeing that, especially now. And we know that if that was the case, the Fed would automatically jump up, and a lot of those swap lines that were rolled down at the end of June, we would see instituted in full force. Hold on one second. I'm just going to I got to go take a quick break. I'll be right back to you. Hold on.
All right. Well, in S&P land, guys, you got to be careful about what this does this afternoon, because, don't lose sight of the fact that this is all lemming effect trades. Every day, we start one way and then we go. And this 54.75 level, okay, we got to hold right in here, and the S&P is on the 25/3. You got the reversal here, but we start coming down, they'll go for these stops. And I just don't know how this is going to trade up, but you better be aware of what can happen. And we need to stay above this level on the monthly chart, or we're going another 100 points lower, below this, down into here, in the mid 31s. So this is big here today on a hold. And the other things, Angelo, I don't know, we talked about it earlier, was that, I thought there was a really good chance we were going to see 1788 in the gold again.
I'm back.
Okay. So I was just recapping the S&P price action. And then Angelo and I were talking about the fact that the way all the spreads are acting in the metals, that 1788, a retest of the breakout's not out of the question at this point.
Not not whatsoever, you know, because you have the deflation. This you could see the way it spills out, and I think, you know, Judd, when you did that S&P gold chart, it's now the gold on the crosses, be it the, you know, euro, Swiss, yen, yuan. These now become the critical areas, and we saw it is really amazing how the markets get mean reverting. You know, even the news is generating should be a little bit positive, but no, you get to roll down. There's been a lot of talk in Europe that the ECB, but I still haven't heard it from Lagarde about the strength of the euro. Some interesting pieces written. So that's back in play. Tomorrow morning we get the Swiss National Bank. I'm true, because the Euro Swiss, I think the last meeting was June 18th or something, somewhere right around there. And, you know, they watch the Euro Swiss, and I think it's basically at the same level it was back in June, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's just in the middle of.
Yeah, so I'm not. You'll get some jawboning. They'll talk about the need to be vigilant, to keep a watch on the strength of the Swiss, because they'll tell you again they deem it to be too strong relative to its underlying fundamentals, because it's a haven. But I watched that because they'll give you a good overview of what they're seeing. Last night we saw, of course, the Kiwi were pretty dovish.
Ira, regarding the currencies, the other thing that I keep in the back of my mind is, how low can, the other countries or the other central banks, let the dollar go before, we get back to, let's call it the currency wars, right? I don't see how, one currency can be allowed to get so far out of whack, if you will, versus the others.
Yep.
Now, maybe the Fed, via stimulus, has the potential to, get it out of whack for a while to create the inflation that you're looking for.
Right.
But then I don't see how. Look, because the European markets, the equities, right, down euro, they rally. They've been moving up.
Yeah.
What did Japan do? I forget what Japan did overnight last night.
No.
It was what, down?
Oh, what? The Nikkei? Nikkei was up.
Yeah, the Nikkei. It closed down 0.6% overnight, right? Okay.
Not last night. Not last night.
Yeah.
No, I got the Singapore.
I'm not looking at the futures. I'm looking at the Nikkei cash.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the Singapore Nikkei, and it shows up the futures closed up 535.
Yeah, the Singapore futures were different.
All right, so you're looking at the futures. I was just looking at the Nikkei 225 cash. Okay. All right. So
but that means they closed out of whack on Tuesday night. I mean on Tuesday night.
Yes. So can the dollar get depreciated? Yes. Will other central banks let it stay there for too long? I doubt it.
Listen, it's there's definitely talk, and it's not just below the surface anymore. It's out there about beggar thy neighbor policies. But if everybody says they're just conducting their monetary policy, it can't be deemed beggar thy neighbor, because you're doing what's good for your domestic economy, which is propping up your economy through creation of liquidity. Now, if that liquidity bleeds in and sends your currency lower, that's just, something that can't be helped, because otherwise you'd be sanitizing the intervention into your money markets, and that would negate the effects. So you got to sit here and take it.
Imagine, what do you suppose would happen if all the central banks, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England, US, Japan, took a page out of the Swiss playbook?
Huh.
I think we started to touch on this a little bit, but we didn't go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Then, to me, it's just a race to the bottom.
Well,
And that would be that would seem to me to be like the ultimate currency war.
well, Angelo, that's what makes the Swiss so interesting to me, and why I keep my eye on them, because as of right now, they are quote unquote getting away with it, right? But what?
Oh, yes, yes.
But what you're stating, well, let's all right. Take that page out. So the United States, instead of buying U.S. bonds, should be buying foreign bonds and foreign stock, right? I'm the Swiss.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine if they were pouring that $2 trillion in monetary input in the global economy directly?
Oh, it'd be crazy.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. I mean, I can't quite grasp the enormity of that just yet, but it's something that I'm thinking about.
Oh, you better.
Is that in the next 6 months? No, but it could be something that comes to fruition or develops, you know, one to 5 years down the road. You know, but I'm not going to trade that. I can't. I got to deal with the here and now.
No, that's right. But is it a possibility? You're damn right that it is a possibility. And then it's time to hold an international meeting, because it's just all hell's going to break loose. The Swiss have been able to get away with it, and nobody says a thing. But it's out there, really, as a paradigm of how to do this. And I'm really surprised. See, the Japanese are nervous because the Japanese could actually do it via the Japanese government pension and Norichukin, some of their large banks and the insurance companies who invest all over the world. They could pour money out into the global economy as they chase, yields and hide it under their monetary policy. But I think they're being, that's why the yen has been going higher. That's why I've liked it, because they've been very careful about this, because you don't want to wear that crown. It'll bring, in today's world where everybody's fighting for whatever growth they can, it will bring down the wrath of hell, I believe. That's why we don't see it.
You guys have to think about the political ramifications of that, because the Republicans would go apoplectic.
I don't, you know what, Judd? There may be a couple of Republicans, right? But at the moment, I don't see any desire on both sides to rein in spending or even worrying about MMT.
Yeah,
they're just not.
I'm not about the spending, but if they thought we were not spending it here, we were spending it someplace else.
Oh yeah,
they go nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Well, so far, right, Ira, the Swiss have bought, international stocks, U.S. stocks, Apple, right. Whatever. Yep. The Bank of Japan, it seems the Bank of Japan so far has limited their equity buying to domestic equities.
Right, but that's the BOJ itself. There are other arms. They're not official arms, of course, but there are massive pension funds and insurance companies and with huge pools of savings that they could send that out around the world in mass, which would have the same effect. Now, it wouldn't be the BOJ. It wouldn't be the official BOJ policy, but we do know over history that the Ministry of Finance in Japan has a lot of authority and a lot of power, and even the ministry under what's his name, Sao, who's the Ministry of Finance, they have a lot of say in the currency and how it gets there. They have a lot of say. That's not the BOJ. The BOJ institutes the monetary policy aspect. The Ministry of Finance has all kinds of other levers to play.
Yeah. It would seem to me, though, that the pension funds wouldn't have the same kind of firepower to weaken the yen as the BOJ would.
Oh, don't. They've got hundreds and hundreds of billions, which is why that risk on, risk off model works that people like to play with. Well, oh, the yen is, because that's the Japanese reversing that and bringing money home instead of leaving it outside of Japan. When they really start to get nervous and they're looking to shore up their balance sheets, it's bringing the yen home, and they can bring it home in huge amounts, just like they could send it out that way. So, but you do have to be careful because the Japanese have been beaten up by the world at times for allowing their currency to weaken. I go back to June of 1998 to October of 98, all kinds of periods I can find where it's been official policy. And they have to be careful about it. And everybody has to be careful in this environment. Because again, tell me who's not suffering. As a national economy, who's not suffering right now?
Yeah. Well, that brings me back to duration and focusing on changes in the rate of growth of GDP, growth and inflation for the here and now, right? With the stimulus and Fed as an overlay to it, and just being aware that there's the potential for further dollar devaluation, but will it come now? I don't know. At this point, it seems like there won't be any kind of stimulus until maybe after the election, because at this point they can't even deal with it. Their heads are just going to explode, with the whole Supreme Court thing, and then the budget. So you got that. So I heard someone say, "Hey, look, well, can't they juggle two things at one time?" And it seems like the answer is no, right? Wow. So it seems like the thing that they're only going to be able to juggle now is the Supreme Court, and then secondarily you got the budget.
Well,
so within those two things,
about Angelo,
so within those two things,
for the next 6 weeks.
That's my
reality.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So stimulus, they don't even have any room in their heads for that.
I listen. This has really gotten away from all of them, and they, again, they played too many games with the stimulus package, because even the Republicans, and you heard Trump, when he says, they would do a $1.5 trillion deal. They would have done a $1.5 trillion deal from day one. And again, this is not a political statement. Pelosi overplayed a hand, and it's come to bite her. And now, of course, when then you have the Supreme Court issue pop up, and then John Authers wrote a piece yesterday. I think that he had it right, because I'm looking. If this gets rushed, do the Democrats pull whatever levers they have to get the street noise out there, for the cameras and massive demonstrations? And believe me, when I say levers, they pull levers. They pull levers. They're not directing it, but they pull levers. And when it hits the streets, I think it would be a mistake, because I think it would play to Trump late with his Law and Order gig. It would play right to it, because right now it's been kind of quiet, even in Kenosha, the places that were hot have gotten quiet, which tells me that smarter people said, hey, cut the street theater out. It's not helping us, it's hurting us. I just get that sense. I say, prove it. I can't prove it, but I've been to enough I've organized enough demonstrations in my life. I've been to enough demonstrations. The rules truly don't change. And there are people who, organize these things, and they start to see, they have to measure the impact too. Because unless, you're not going to revolution, you're trying to make and rightfully so, I might add, a political statement, but you have to be careful that the message isn't being obfuscated and coming back and boomeranging and hurting yourself. So you have to be careful with them.
Yeah. So, I'm operating under the assumption that the RBG thing, has put a temporary wet blanket on stimulus.
Yeah, well, you're not hearing, there were articles written about where some of that stimulus money went. And you're not seeing that. That doesn't come up. I mean, some of it went to places it just should not be, not the military industrial complex.
Believe me, some terrible things. And again, it's bipartisan, and as always, when money gets abused, it's bipartisan. It's not a partisan issue. Yeah, and again, Judge, that's right. It doesn't get talked because there's now a new topic that is now going to supersede, and that's why it's almost interesting, because I listened to the C-SPAN broadcast today of of Powell's testimony. You want to listen to it because you want to see how they make their cases, because they're all trying to put out now, we're 5 weeks from a presidential election. Everybody's trying to stake their claim out there and get their lightning bolts to try to land somewhere productive. And you heard it. I mean, it was the Republicans were doing it with the schools, and the Democrats were coming back and pushing, jobs directly, and everybody was staking out their claim.
And they always do it. I mean, now it's RBG, and during Bush, it was women are too stupid to have the right to choose, and it was really about the economy at the time. And Clinton made the case it's about the economy, and he won. He won the argument.
That's right. Yeah.
And the right just said no. It's about women. Women should be suppressed.
And you know what? And Clinton won. Well, and the other argument, because Bush made no economic argument, Ross Perot was able to steal all those Republican voters away. And that was 19% of the Republican voters, or I won't say all Republican, but certainly 14 or 15% who gravitated, and I was one of them. I never.
Yeah, I was one of them too. I thought he made a great argument, and then the little autocrat backed out.
Yeah, and then he ran again in '96 and got what, 2 or 3%, because he had overplayed his hand and overstayed his welcome. But and then he backed down. But
backed up
because at that time, to discuss the budget, as we've seen, was very important. And Bill Clinton got it. There's no question about it. He got the right economic people in, and he rode a wave that they helped make happen with technology. And he was smart. And he was busy cutting spending in certain areas. So they were
he balanced the budget.
Yep. He sure did.
He was the only one that's ever balanced the budget.
Clinton was able to cut spending because the demographics were in his favor. The baby boomers were in their peak spending years.
Yep. But you have to be willing to do it. You know what?
Yeah. And a lot of things lined up very nicely.
Yeah. But you still have to be willing to do that. And he was. He had the right people. Bob Rubin, I can disagree with Rubin on many things, and the way what his intentions may have been at the end, but he was smart enough to understand the opportunity that was hand, and they did it. You know what? And the economy was booming enough where people were willing to take a tax increase at the rate that wasn't ridiculous, and at least it was going to show that, hey, you know what? The budget the budget deficit was declining. Who could disagree with that? Growing economy, declining budget deficit looks pretty good.
Yeah, and in 94 and 95, he switched to a strong dollar policy.
Yeah, and Greenspan accommodated by raising rates. So they, you know what, he was still willing to do it. Bush, the second Bush, never understood a damn thing about the economy. As these guys are wanting, he had terrible. Although I applauded him because he was getting away from Wall Street. Don't forget, George Bush II did not have anybody from Wall Street in his cabinet to begin with. His first two secretaries of treasuries were John Snow and Paul O'Neill. Think about that, both from industry.
Yeah.
Very unusual. And I know somebody, in fact, a pretty good friend of mine, who was up for the international, to be Undersecretary of Treasury for international. And I know because I got a call from the FBI because they were investigating him, and he told me I was going to get a call, but he didn't get chosen. And when he called me, he said, why didn't I get picked? And he was highly, highly, highly qualified. One of the most highly qualified people for the job that I know. And I said, because he didn't take anybody from Wall Street. He says, yeah, bingo. He said, can you believe that? I said, I actually applaud him for it. He said, yeah, thanks. But, you know, that was that administration. Then he got bogged down and he totally lost his way. And then he had to go grab Hank Paulson, who, whatever, as your daughters would say, you're not all that. That's what I think about Hank Paulson. You're not all that. But I mean, but you still have to be willing to make the decisions right now. You know, and I think that's what the market's telling us is that, hey, we didn't get the fiscal stimulus. We're not getting the fiscal stimulus. And it's not coming. What worries the market is not that they're not getting it, but they're not getting it, and it's not because things are you know, absolutely improved. It's, you know, so now they're having to deal with, you know, where's this going to, you know, where's this going to take us? Which is why the deflation view gets more pronounced. That's why I say
Ira, you have to ask yourself, okay, we have a leaky bucket. They're not putting any more water in it. What now happens to the credit and the labor cycle in the coming months?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just misdirection nightly if you try to intake any news.
Oh yeah, I can't. I don't.
It's crazy.
I'm telling you, I don't even. I put on the local news for about 10 minutes so I can see Tom Skilling do the weather. Only because
you know, it's funny. It's funny you say that because I don't watch the news either. I stopped. I stopped about 2 weeks ago.
I don't. Yeah, you know what? I saw that great piece that Trevor Noah did where he says,
that was really good, wasn't it?
That was great. He doesn't watch the news. He says, this is my business. But he says, I'll only read it because it's not news. It's people yelling at each other. And I know what each of them are going to say before they say it. So what's the sense of it?
He did a great podcast with Fauci as to where and when and how to wear your mask.
Yeah. You know what? I just can't, I can't take some of these people. I mean, it's not, give me something, you know, show me. And I watched and my wife looks at me, she says, why are you watching that? I go, she says, you never watch the news. I said, I know. I watch Skilling and I'll watch a couple minutes to see just what's going on. Cause I don't read the local papers. I haven't read the Tribune in years.
Well, you know what? The reason for that, Ira, is because we are all the kind of people that like to do deep dives and get in the weeds.
Oh,
and the newspapers and the nightly news are nowhere near doing that.
Well, it's right what Porter said again. There's no journalism to it anymore.
No, that's why for us it's a total waste of time. But here's the scary part. How about, you know, that slice of America that doesn't have access to the kind of information that we do,
No,
that we pay for to
well,
do
that's
those deep dives?
That's 90%, Angelo. They're just waiting for the soundbite to fortify an ill-conceived thought, process. In their thinking, they don't care. It's like, okay, he's the greatest thing in the world, or he's the worst thing in the world.
Believe me, anybody knows I'm a political junkie, and I just can't. I tell people, I said, look, I'll talk anything you want about Trump, about Biden, but I want to talk policy. If you're not going to talk policy, you tell me what you don't like as far as policy, and then we can discuss it, because that's what I'm busy investigating. I don't care what your feelings are. I don't care, because I can't argue feelings. Well, I can't argue somebody's feelings. And more importantly, I can't discuss somebody's feelings. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not here to, your feelings, great. You go share your feelings. I want to talk policy, so I've shut off a lot of discussion in my personal life with people, because I said, let's talk policy. I'm prepared to talk policy. You want to talk tax policies? You want to talk fine. You want to see where I disagree with Trump about, fine. On policy, I'll tell you 100% why, I feel this, and this. But I'm not talking feelings. I'm not talking feelings. Because then it's just, we're talking feelings.
Well, that's exactly what you see in the news every night, because you've got somebody standing up there just stirring emotions and not talking policy, and that's what you're getting from both sides right now.
And it's just all to create an "I got you." Oh, see, I got you, and that's what I watched when I watched the Apollo hearing. It's "I got you." Well, come on, that's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get us anywhere. Tell me how you're going to make it better. Okay. If you change administrations, and that's what you think, fine. But then let's get to the policies. You can celebrate all you want, but if the policies are going to be shit, you're going to wind up paying for it.
I swear, Ira, Congress, they should be unpaid and part-time.
I didn't know you were a Jeffersonian.
Yeah. They won't even give themselves term limits.
Yeah, I don't even know if we'd be that lucky.
It's Thomas Jefferson's, that politicians should be gentlemen farmers, and they should come and legislate and then go back to their job. But, yeah.
Force them to make a real living.
That sailed long ago.
Force them to have to sign a payroll check.
Well, he was the guy that understood debt.
Who?
Jefferson.
Yeah. Actually, Hamilton far better. Jefferson. Yeah. Jefferson was a gentleman farmer and a genius. Listen, I've always been a Jefferson fan because of all you do is have to read his works. But there's a lot of things I don't disagree that I disagree with. Where Hamilton was far smarter on the understanding of finance. He basically put together the entire credit market that has served the United States very well for all these years. So pretty good. Jefferson would have taken the U.S. down because, listen, he didn't believe in a bank, rightly or wrongly, and how to work it out. Jefferson had his, I would almost call him myopic views for a guy who was a universal genius. Yeah, he was myopic in some ways, but we all have our blinkers on for certain things. But I mean, the guy's a genius. Couldn't resolve the 3/5 deal, but it was, it's so hard to judge these people from where I sit today. You know, I don't. It's a bad way to look at history. I mean, you can have a good time with it, but you know, when you play politics and you have to get things done, you make compromises that are not things that you really believe in. But nobody gets everything that they want. I'm looking at the German Italian is down to 135 today on the 135. Yeah, on the differential, believe it or not, which is
Hold on a second. Let me pull that up.
which is interesting because for these last 2 days, we've gotten now a breakdown, because usually when you would see this type of action where the Italian was performing so well against the German and the French, the euro would be in rally mode.
Oh, this seems major oversold.
Well, you're coming into month end. We don't know
where it wants to go, Ira. Well, it already went there.
Yeah, well, and we don't know if it's just the ECB pushing this, Judd. So that's what makes it so difficult.
Wait, so Ira, are you saying that that could potentially set up a stronger euro? You know, at least a very short term?
Yes, because when this narrows, it shows that there's no existential concern about the euro, because why would you be buying Italian bonds, right?
Yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Okay, so that has been the relationship for quite a while. You know, it breaks down at times, but I'm watching this closely because here we are here, and the euro, it's coming into some support areas. So I want to see if it can hold here. And what is this telling me? So if the existential, but you know, in my mind, the existential, as of May 25th, the existential crisis of the euro has been greatly diminished until I guess we get another court ruling from Karlsruhe, where the German High Court sits. Or somebody says something else. But in the face of all this, you know, with the talk about the euro, that's the Italian has performed very, very, very well. Very well.
Yeah, I mean, my God, at 86 basis points?
Yeah.
What, two weeks ago or whatever? You know, where were we? You know,
111.
You know, 110 or something?
That's right.
Okay. So I mean, but you know, so you got the Bund at negative 50 basis points. You got the rally in the Italians and in the Oats. Can you say that that's some sort of a safety trade?
Well, here's what I can say it is. It's one of two things. It's either the ECB, who's in buying large quantities as they're coming to month end because they have the quotas. And in fact, they now have the flexibility under the PPEP, or the PEPP, I think, where they don't have to buy according to the capital key. So who knows how many they're buying. I also see the Greek 10 years at 101.
You know, I didn't look at that.
No. Wait till the Italian goes lower than the US 10-year.
Talk about a bizarre world.
Oh God. So, you know, it's me, it's just understanding it, because you have to understand the importance of the capital flows with this. So, but this may be totally the central bank impact, or see, in the way I say it's central bank, because if it was some types of investment funds and they were buying Italian, buying Greek, and building basically a synthetic euro bond by themselves, and to try to generate more yield, you'd be seeing more support in the euro currency than we're seeing.
That's okay. That's kind of what I thought you would say. Okay.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
I would say this is all ECB right now for 2 days.
Okay.
I don't know that. I can only, take it apart.
It's an educated guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's all it is. It's all
Well,
it
it's
is.
better than watching the nightly news.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you they won't
Well,
be
this
talking about
10-year
this.
Italian chart is like astounding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I haven't
Judd,
even
they're,
seen it since
Judd,
last,
they're starting to buy financials.
right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing cash creep in.
Okay.
The regional bank, okay, regional banks up.
Bank of the Ozarks
PNC,
up. Yeah, I see the insurers are up. Good luck.
Morgan Stanley just went positive, so I'm seeing a little something going on.
Yeah, who the hell would be buying financials?
Yeah.
Truly.
Well, why? It's just not me.
Well, I'm not investing for now, Ira. I'm investing according to the CCANT for third quarter of 21.
And it's not my money.
Yeah.
It's really hard to
I'm just extrapolating out earnings. That's all on a CCANT.
Chris Whalen took apart Citibank in a piece he wrote yesterday, but I couldn't open it. So
Yeah.
it was.
You know what? I still kind of like CM. You know, Canadian Imperial Bank.
Yeah.
It kind of got overbought. You know, so Judd, if it might be worth a look as far as some sort of entry point.
I'm looking at it, but it's nowhere for me. I have to see it higher.
And Ira, you got a nice fat yield, 5.8%.
Hey, you know what? So when they correct, that's when I try to acquire them. Look, I'm the only bank that I've really been buying is UBS. Now I've gotten hurt for the last 3 days because it's come back about 11, 12%. But I still think it's in a very enviable position. And that also has a 5.5% dividend yield, I believe. Could be wrong.
Right? Canadians got a different look on the weekly, Angelo.
I'm sorry, say that again, Judd.
It's got a different look on the weekly.
So
So if you're looking for a Wednesday low, you just got it. So
There's actually an article in the FT right now that came out a little bit ago. Italian government bonds hit record high after regional vote. So, and if you think that regional vote has anything to do with it, good luck to you. But it's a good story. So it was higher than
I was looking at I was looking at USB, not UBS.
Right. I know. I do that all the time. Why people love that thing?
that thing's so hard to read.
What's that?
UBS.
I know. It's, you know what? It's a Swiss bank run by probably the one of the most knowledgeable bankers in the world, Axel ever. So you're making a bet on that. And if the markets really start to get comfortable that there's growth coming, I like the way they position themselves. That's why I like the bank.
You know, Ira, the dividend on Credit Suisse is 145 basis points.
Yeah, I don't like the bank though. I think they've done a lot of shitty things and they're trying to clean it up. They may actually wind up merging these two. It's hard to believe. I would rather see, I guess UBS probably looked deep at Deutsche Bank because I thought we were going to actually see a merger of Deutsche Bank and UBS, which would be a monster. That would shake the banking world because that would be a monster. But Deutsche Bank where UBS has cleaned up a lot of stuff, Deutsche Bank is a mess.
I mean, would the Swiss want to take on a mess?
Well, you know, there's a price for everything. All depends what price it's at. I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, hell, if I deem myself a high quality banker, then, and look at Jamie Dimon took Bear Stearns, which was a mess. Now,
I mean, heck, if UBS wanted to buy Deutsche Bank, they had their chance at $5 back in March.
yeah, yeah, it would have to be a force. First of all, the Germans aren't. That's the crown jewel of the German financial system. So that would not take place easily, and I'm sure that's part of the headache too. Because by the time you have to jump through, it's like deal with Sisyphus in the U.S. It comes with a lot of headaches, as you're seeing with TikTok and all the other ones.
Yeah, that's a whole saga playing out in the press every day.
Yeah.
Judd, Deutsche Bank, what did it do? Gap down at the open on Monday, right? And now for the past 3 days this week, resistance is the 200-day.
Yeah, and you look at it here, and it looks like it wants to come back down another 40 cents or even lower. So it's not something that you really want to jump into.
Hell no.
No. You know what? I would wait until it got over the 200-week moving average on a couple weekly closes before I'd even entertain buying it. Because
it's $12.
Yeah. Okay. What's the difference?
Yeah. So yeah,
What's the difference? I may as well wait. There's nothing but trouble hiding there.
Yeah, and you're not getting, and Ira, you're not getting paid to wait.
No, that's what I'm saying. You took the words out of my mouth. There's no dividend there to placate you.
And if they come into the U.S., then all these people are going to want to go through their books to see what fearless leaders got on their books.
Well, that's another.
There's no way that happens.
Yeah, that's another piece of the puzzle. But here, at least for the 10, 11 years, 12 years I've been in a couple Japanese banks, I've received enough of a dividend. It's a waste of friggin' money because it's done nothing. But it was like owning a bond. Because some years the dividend was 3.5%. Now I think it's down to 1.5%. It's but at least I got paid for waiting. Oh, here's Rosengren. Okay, here's why the bank's Rosengren said shouldn't allow bank dividends until after pandemic.
Yeah. JP Morgan's still $1 lower on the day. I don't get sucked into any of that stuff.
35 cents lower.
Yeah, it dropped 10% in a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's $1 out of the opening range is really what I was looking at. So
yeah.
It's so far off. It's
well,
it's best levels of the day.
And now you got Rosengren out. No dividends, let alone stock buybacks. Which I'd rather have a dividend than a stock buyback any day.
So they have figured out that Nikola is just a total fraud now?
Yeah, that story I'm not even following.
Even after the guy walked away with what, $1.5 billion or $2 billion after listing it?
Hey.
Well, Judd, I found out the other day, my industrials analyst worked at Morgan Stanley, and it was funny, nobody knew this. He goes, oh yeah, Trevor, what's his name, Trevor Martin? He was an auto analyst at Morgan Stanley for 5 years.
So he knew how to pump a stock.
There you go.
Good for him. If he stays out of jail, he can spend it.
Yeah, listen, it's the same with WeWork, right? Look at the money he walked away with.
Yeah.
And we still
John Corzine's another one.
Oh, well, that's a whole different world.
I mean,
But-
that is just a disgusting thing, the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
And then we have SoftBank. You know, again, we still do not have a good sense of everything that's going on there.
So on another level, I sent a note to Kevin and asked him if he'd come in and speak with us.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Stan made a comment this morning about, well, he's on a call now because they're trying to list these South American beans, these Brazilian beans.
Yeah.
And he said they don't have any data. There are no charts. There's no historical data. There's no historical cash data. And they're putting this listing up. And they've got nothing. And so I told him to ask Dennis Flynn about it because he's been doing business down there. And so that just kind of led back to the conversation. Well, what led to that conversation was the fact that they're going to list this water contract, and it's being listed by a couple of 30-somethings, right? And the question, and Stan's comment was, you know, that the CFTC isn't requiring these people to come up with any solid blueprints. You know, they can just list this stuff and see if they work.
I get regards from you from Jackie C. He called me yesterday. I haven't talked to him in quite a while.
Who? Jack?
I told him I was talking with you, and we were talking, and he was remembering the Deutschmark yen trade. We started laughing. Yeah, I had him and Sully on yesterday. They called me, talked to me about something. They had a question.
Yeah.
Jack said to pass on regards. It was great to talk to him. Last time I hadn't talked to him since a few weeks after Jerry passed away.